Hi there, biology class at Colegio Bolivar. This is my first time making notes, so please let me know how to get better in the comments section or the discussion board, depending on how I post this for you. I want to go along with the book because the book still does a great job explaining how we do our outline notes, so I encourage you to have that open next to you for organizational. Also, having read this first so that what I talk about makes sense. We're going to have three main parts. The first is, what is ecology and why do we care about it? The second is, how do we organize that whole biosphere, which is largely where ecology occurs? And then, how do things interact? We're talking about symbiosis in its three different forms. Alright, so with ecology we're going to do a definition, how we study it, why we need to study it. First off, our textbook definition. That's the scientific discipline in which the relationships among living organisms and the interaction of the organisms have with their environments are studied. Okay, so that's a lot of jargon. It's pretty much studying any living thing and how it interacts with its environment, assuming that we're talking about one organism and larger. So it's studying nature. It's not the easiest thing to do because nature's not controlled, right? We can't do it in a lab. It's this large interconnected web of things that's outside of our hands. So the way that we study it is by doing case studies. We look at what happened, what changed in this one location, and then what responded to that change. And then we'll do many different case studies that are similar, and we'll factor out things that were constant to figure out what's really causing what changes. There's a lot of statistical analysis there. But the big ticket for ecology is large sample sizes. Since we have very few constants, we need to have really big sample sizes to account for all those outliers and weird things and stuff that we can't control. Why do we have to care about ecology? Well, in short, because all of our health and economics and geopolitical stability depend on ecology. If your environment's trashed, your life will be unhealthy. If your environment's not productive, then you don't have any natural resources, which makes it really hard to do any manufacturing or trades or goods or services or anything like that, which makes it really hard to keep your economy running. And finally, what resources you have determines how you trade on an international scale, and that determines geopolitical stability. So taking care of your environment will make you more self-sufficient, so less prone to wars and things like that. It's going to make you healthier, and it's going to make you more economically prosperous. Everything about ecology comes back to you, and all the aspects of your life. When we talk about, and for those of you following along, we just flipped to page 34. When we talk about the biosphere, the textbook definition is it's the portion of Earth that supports life. This means it's the very outside layer. You don't find life like a kilometer deep in the soil. It's pretty much done. It's pretty much rocks. So we just have this really itty-bitty layer that is living dirt, water, and the troposphere, the bottom layer of the atmosphere. There's not life anywhere else. And to put that into perspective, it's kind of like the candy coating on an M&M. And when you think about that, the whole M&M is pretty big, but the candy coating disappears really fast. What you do, just holding the candy coating can get it to rub off in your hands. The biosphere is just as fragile as that candy coating. Not even the candy coating, the color on the candy coating. That's the thinness that we're talking about here. Let me highlight that. Color on the candy coating. Yeah. And it's all the Earth that we see, so we feel like it's all the Earth. But it's only like 0.1% of the actual mass of the Earth. Maybe less. As a result of it being so small, humans really do have a large impact on it. There are two parts to the biosphere. There's the abiotic parts and the biotic parts. The biotic factors are anything that's alive. Let's circle that in green. literally anything alive that was once living. That's your animals, it's your plants, it's your fungus, it's your bacteria, it's your protist, it's anything that meets our characteristics of life, or used to. Your abiotics, let's make those black. Or anything that don't meet the 8 characteristics of life. Rocks, water, temperature, wind. Now, it's important to realize that your abiotic factors affect your biotic factors, and vice versa. Your biotic factors affect your abiotics. Right? How hot it is affects you. How much water there is affects what plants live there. It's meshed, but they're separate. Okay. When we talk about the biosphere, we're talking about Russian nesting dolls. And what that means, it's right, there's a big one, or there's a little doll, and then you put it in a big one, and then you put it in a bigger one, and you put it in a bigger one, and you put it in a bigger one. And it just keeps growing, but all of the smaller ones are still contained inside that larger system. So, at the bottom of the biosphere, the smallest thing we concern ourselves with in ecology is the individual. Individual. This is one single thing. This is you. You are an organism. There's just one of you. Or the bird that you see outside your window, that's an organism. Next, we switch to populations. This is a group of organisms that all live in the same place and can interact with each other. What that means for us is it's this moose and this moose and that moose. Sorry, these aren't moose, these are caribou. But these 4 caribou together, those make up one population. It's like a flock of birds, or a pack of dogs that all live in the same space. That's the dog or bird population. Or it's all the humans that live in Cali, Colombia. That's the population. When we talk about the human population, we don't include the dog numbers, and when we talk about the dog population, we don't include the human numbers. Okay, great. Next. The community. Alright, so communities are different groups of populations. So we've got our caribou, we've got our actual moose, we've got our wolves, and we've got our pine trees, and we've got our grasses. All these different things that are alive, all these multiple populations make up a community. So again, a recap. One individual is an individual. Many individuals is a population. Many populations is a community. Ooh. Okay. Next. The ecosystem. The ecosystem is taking that community that we just established, all the different biotic factors, and adding in the abiotics. So an ecosystem is your community, all your biotic factors, as well as the amount of sun, the amount of water, the temperature, the type of soil present, the if you're on a mountain, all these things, all the abiotics, any abiotic you can think of, plus the community, and the community is all the different populations, and a population is a group of individuals. From ecosystems, we go to biomes. A biome is a group of ecosystems that are really similar. So we might talk about, like, the tropical rainforest, which is largely speaking our biome. However, you'll go to some places in Colombia that have these, these wax palms, like in Salento, or you'll go to some that have a lot of eucalyptus plants, which are invasive and shouldn't be here. Or you go to other places that are mostly ferns and fronds. So there's different ecosystems, but they're all very hot and very wet. So they're all similar. So again, a biome is many ecosystems together. An ecosystem is a community with abiotic factors. A community is many populations, and a population is many of the same types of individuals. See how each one is kind of like the last one plus something more? Good. the biosphere. We previously defined it. I'm not going to explain again. If you need it explained again, go back a few minutes and check out what we define the biosphere as. Remember, this is a video. You can pause and rewind as often as you like. Okay. Now we're on ecosystem interactions and community interactions. When we talk about, so that's page 38, I forgot to tell you to flip the last page. When we talk about how ecosystems interact, the first thing you have to understand is that it's hard to say where one ecosystem stops and another ecosystem starts. There's this space in the middle called an ecotone. It's like a blending of two ecosystems. And there's many creatures that don't stay in one ecosystem, but we'll talk about that more later. Let's first define a couple words. There's habitat. A habitat is strictly where you live. You know, a fish's habitat is the lake that it lives in. The habitat of a bird is all the locations that it flies to. The habitat of an ant is its colony and all the places that it forages. Your habitat is wherever you go on a regular basis. A dog's habitat might be whatever neighborhood that it stays in primarily. You may have noticed that these habitats are all different sizes, and that one thing's habitat might not even be restricted to a single ecosystem. Imagine, if you will, a frog. A frog spends time in the lake ecosystem, and it also spends time in the land ecosystem next to it. That's what I mean when I say the lines are a little fuzzy. Ecosystems interact with each other not just because they're next to each other, but because the populations in those ecosystems frequently go between many ecosystems, because their habitats are big, like migratory birds. There are birds that spend some time in Alaska, and birds that spend some time in Colombia. The same birds. That's like their range. It's kind of crazy. And what they do in one might affect another. The next word we want to know about is niche. And that's the job that an organism has in its environment. Some of those jobs are really obvious. Flies. The job of flies in an environment is to be eaten by something bigger than them. The job of trees is to provide some level of shade, some amount of food, for herbivores and herbivorous insects and things like that. The niche of ants is a little bit more complicated. Some things eat ants. Ants attack other things. They protect some plants. They also change the soil structure. They help in decomposition. These are all the roles, the jobs, the niche of an ant. Niches are important because every role needs to be filled, right? If we didn't have ants and funguses doing decomposition, that'd be a major problem. Things need to be decomposing. If they're not, the ecosystem would quickly break as all the energy gets tied up in dead stuff. And that's a problem. Okay? We'll do a lab on ecosystem interactions in a little bit, particularly niches. There's three main types of community interactions. There's competition, there's predation, and there's competition, predation, and symbiosis. And there's three types of symbiosis. In competition, you can have interspecies or intraspecies competition. Interspecies might be like different types of animals. Interspecies is different types of animals trying to eat the same type of food. They're competing for that single resource, or they're competing for that single cave to live in, or they're competing for the best spot at the watering hole. Intraspecies is competition inside the same population. It's inter the species. That would be male elks competing for female elks. That would be also competition over resources. Predation is pretty obvious. It's one organism eating another for food and energy. Then there's three types of symbiosis. Symbiosis is simply defined as a super close relationship between two organisms. There's mutualism. That's when both organisms benefit. Think about bees getting pollen from a flower, and the flower pollinates other flowers. It's good for both. Hence the picture. There's commensalism. One organism benefits and the other organism doesn't care. Think about barnacles on a whale. As the whale moves, the barnacles get fresh water filtered through them, giving them food. The whale doesn't even know those barnacles exist. And it doesn't care. Then there's parasitism. This is when one organism benefits and the other organism is hurt. Think about mosquitoes and ticks and tapeworms. All of those things literally eat you. Not all of you, but part of you. And so you're losing benefit. You're losing blood or things like that, or they're getting food. So they get helped, and you get hurt. That's it. That's the short. Please feel free to rewind, rewatch, take notes. I'm going to post this in a TED-Ed, and you'll find the discussion section. Please give me comments about how to make my next video better. If I don't get any comments, then I can't get any better. And I, like you, am open to continuous learning, that great habit of mind, and I want to get better at this. So please let me know how to do that. Thanks so much.